I should say I hear many people talking as if the terms liberal, progressive, and leftist refer to different factions and that one might partner with one and reject another. I've been on the left my entire adult life, and I've never seen clean distinctions drawn between these things. In fact, I remember there was a time when the term liberal had been so thoroughly demonized by those on the right that I remember consciously choosing to call myself a progressive in order to evade the stigma. But there was no change in my perspective that accompanied it. So there may be slight distinctions between how people use those terms, but in general, I think they're synonyms and should be treated as such. So I've also said that I am a liberal who wishes to live in a world so good that I can be a conservative. And that may sound paradoxical at first, or at least strange, but I think it makes a great deal of sense, because the core of liberalism is a desire for change. And if one's desire for change is an earnest desire to see things improved, then surely there's a state at which things have been improved to the point that you would hope to conserve the structure rather than alter it. At that point, you become a conservative. I don't expect to reach that place in my lifetime, but if we did, the honest thing to do would be for me to shift positions and say this system is so functional that we would be fools to change it. So the essence of liberalism is a desire for change, and change can be about a number of things. In general, for those of us on the left, it comes from a recognition that the systems we find it is systematically unfair to some people. And to the extent that it's unfair, and that unfairness is distributed in some way that is predictable, that certain populations face obstacles that others don't, we could correct that problem, and really I believe we have a moral obligation to do so. I also believe that we are on a trajectory technologically and in terms of the way the population of the planet is growing that puts us in grave danger in the near term. Both of those things suggest a need for a comparatively radical degree of change. Now, those on the right are correct in pointing out that there's other evidence that says our system is actually highly functional as we find it. Steven Pinker famously points to a decrease in random violence, for example, and warfare. And I believe he has a real point, but I don't think it predicts where we will end up in the long term. What it effectively is the result of is the fact that we have created a kind of artificial growth that goes on decade after decade and gives people a lot to lose for engaging in random violence. But because it's predicated on the fiction that it can go on forever, ultimately it's going to leave us holding the bag. So yes, I'm a progressive, I'm a liberal, and I would like to see those of us on the left who have a rational perspective that's grounded in science and logic. I would like us to retake the left, to take control of it from people who are using it as a weapon, and to restore a rational dialogue of progressivism to the landscape. I also believe that those on the right who are interested in seeing the best possible system and believe that we are closer to it than I do should be rooting for a vibrant left, because it is only the tension between these two emphases that leaves us with reasonable governance. In other words, liberals tend to be overly enthusiastic about the idea of change, and they tend not to fully appreciate the unintended consequences of attempting to fix problems that are identified. Conservatives tend to be very skeptical of change, and when something could be improved, they will often get in the way of those improvements because they fear the unintended consequence perhaps more than they should. It is the tension between these two things where liberals can fill in the blind spots of conservatives and conservatives can fill in the blind spots of liberals. That is the magic that makes our system function well. It leaves us with change, enough to make things better over time, but not such wild enthusiasm for change that we take a good system and destroy it in the pursuit of a perfect one.